Hey, it's Mr. Amberman here, and today, as part of our political geography unit, we're going to take a look at nationalism, devolution, and supranationalism. And they say breaking up and making up is hard to do. Well, you're going to find out how states do it right now. Now, as we've said before, ladies and gents, nationalism is loyalty and devotion to a particular country. It's that allegiance, that nationalism that we've made reference to when we've talked about ethnic conflict, etc. And so, what happens when nations don't get along? Well, what happens is called devolution. When those nations no longer get along, they decide to break up, just like Mr. Potato Head in this image. And the definition of devolution is the process whereby regions within a state demand and gain political strength and growing autonomy, which means independence, at the expense of a central government. So that basically means that the small subdivisions of a country, state, decide to, hey, we're out of here. And so they leave. And so when we want to take a look at a fairly recent example, we take a look at Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia during the Cold War was basically a mishmash of different ethnic groups, states into what was called Yugoslavia. And in the early 1990s, when the Soviet Union came to an end, the different groups decided to devolve. Croatia left, and then Bosnia Herzegovina decided to try to leave, and that's when Serbia, in this image known as Yugoslavia, decided to try to keep them. And so devolution is kind of like if you can imagine a quilt tied together by a thread, and that thread coming apart and the quilt falling apart. And so when we think of a quilt, I also think about Russia. Russia, over the years, just kept conquering and conquering and conquering, and not all the people in Russia are Russian. And so at the first chance to maybe leave, some of those groups may. In the early 1990s, people called Chechens in their area called Chechnya, they wanted to leave Russia, and Russia was not having any part of that because they feared that if Chechnya got out, then the rest of those smaller groups would leave, thus making Russia less powerful. But think about it for a moment. What if the United States devolved? What if Pennsylvania left, or Texas left, or California left? Now, I got to be honest with you, there are some states that have secessionist movements. They want to break away. And obviously, the biggest case study of that happening in U.S. history is the Civil War, where the southern states decided to secede. They devolved. America devolved then. What if it would happen in our current time? There's people in Hawaii that want to be independent. There's people in Alaska that want to be independent. There's a very strong movement in Texas of people who want to be independent. So that is devolution. The opposite of devolution, though, is supranationalism. That's right. This is an organization that you have three or more states, and you create an association, you create kind of an administrative structure. So you're organized, you gain together. So for instance, I have in this image the Avengers. And so, Captain America was the de facto leader of the Avengers. They had a headquarters, they had meetings. And so a supranationalistic organization is a group of people who decide to band together for a greater purpose. And they give up some of their individuality in order to be part of a greater whole. In the current world, we have the European Union, the United Nations, NATO, the African Union, the Organization for American States, and the Commonwealth, which are former British colonies. And those organizations have loose, or in some cases, very strong organizations. So the United Nations, based in New York City, most of the states in the world belong to the UN. The European Union, not all European states belong to it, but it is a very powerful entity. NATO was created during the Cold War to kind of be an alliance among European and the United States, the European powers in the United States to combat the Soviet Union. The African Union is a loose group of people in Africa that they try to fix African problems as a group, as a collective. Some of these organizations are more productive than others, but that is an example of a supranationalistic organization. The European Union, as you can see here, you can see if you read the chart, you can hit pause, you can actually examine it a little closer. But over the years, the European Union has grown, and the biggest debate anymore within the regards to the European Union is should Turkey be allowed in? Should Russia be allowed in? And you can see from this how over time, from after World War II to the relative present in 2009, where different organizations, groups have tried to join the European Union. And if you know anything about the European Union, within the European Union, they try to use a currency which is called the euro. Um, they have unlimited movement within the European Union. So if you're in Spain, you can go to France without really much ado. You just cross the border, like going from Pennsylvania to Maryland. In recent memory, the we call it Brexit. The United Kingdom has tried to get out of the European Union, and that actually may cause further devolution within the United Kingdom as Scotland wants to continue to be a part of the European Union. So I don't think we've heard the last of devolution in Europe. So nationalism, devolution, and supranationalism, three very key components in our understanding of political geography. Have a great day.